Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, and welcome everyone to National Distance Learning Week with SUNY Online. I am Aline Slading, Senior Instructional Designer with SUNY Online Teaching, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's session and introduce our speaker. Rachel Rigolino has been a member of the English department at SUNY New Paltz since 1993 and currently teaches first-year composition as well as novel and short story courses. She also coordinates the Supplemental Writing Workshop Composition Program. Rachel graduated from Vassar College with a degree in English Literature and later earned an MA from SUNY New Paltz. Her research focuses on educational technology and pedagogical best practices in the area of online writing instruction. Rachel has been recognized as a SUNY Online Teaching Ambassador with SUNY Online. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, thank you so much, Aileen. I just welcome everybody. I have been teaching online since dial-up back in the day of Lotus Notes. And those of you that who might have taught back then, you remember how cumbersome it was to dial in and hear that noise with the phone lines connecting. So this presentation comes out of some practices I've been doing actually before AI. And I wanted to build into my courses, especially my online courses, but actually what I'm doing in my online courses then translated to my seated courses as well, because I found that these assignments worked well in seated classrooms as well. So it has to do with creating friction. And we've been hearing a lot about friction or not having friction because of AI. So I wanted to begin with this concept of friction. So what is it? So here's a definition that I got just kind of randomly on the web, but from a professor at U Berkeley, that friction is the amount of effort that's required, right, to take an action. So if something has low friction, people are likely to do it. If something has a lot of friction, people are unlikely to do it. I love simple definitions such as that. So Clay Shirky, who was not writing about pedagogy back in 2010, but Clay Shirky, who is actually the vice provost now of AI and technology at NYU, he kind of an American writer, pundit, and often looked at the intersections with like the social and economic effects of the internet and technology, and he's a journalist. So anyway, he came up with this thesis that I understand where he's coming from. The idea that with the advent of technology and even easier access to the internet, right? Like broadband, if we went back to the dial-up, everything was always very kind of clunky. So with this new technology, the advances in technology and broadband, you're removing barriers from people being able to participate online. They can sign on easy. And his thesis was, which is so, 15 years later, his thesis was that humans will create, contribute, just engage with one another, and that, they would find, and he was basing this on platforms like Wikipedia. People could come together and create knowledge. And this was going to be this kind of dawning of a society where people would do this. So the idea that when you lower friction, and he's talking about technology, that we would then participate instead of like sitting at home watching TV or being passive consumers of technology, right? Or of media, instead of being passive media consumers of media, that we would actually participate in the making of meaning. And therefore, this would lead to more creativity and democratization of knowledge, right? And indeed, if we translate this to like ed tech, and then this screenshot was from 2017. Yes, all of us, designers, IDs, faculty members, people who do design educational technology. Right, we don't want pointless friction, right? We want to make online learning, the aim was frictionless, so that students felt empowered and able to participate. Yeah, that one, you can just log right in and you don't have to have multiple logins. Very easy to upload an assignment. You could click. So the thesis is obviously that if you reduce friction, right, in a great perfect world, that people will become more eager to think about things and share ideas. Okay. So, all right. And this idea, I think was pretty widespread, and all of us more or less kind of buying into it. But right, 2025, moving ahead to, OpenAI chatbot, ChatGPT appearing on the scene in late 2022. Now Shirky, and actually he has a more recent article out. If you haven't read the Chronicle, I think it was this week, he wrote another article about plagiarism. Now he is concerned, right? Because now AI has made completing assignments completely frictionless. And we talk about cognitive offloading at this point because, all right, so it's easy to sign in, and now it's easy now to just let the AI do the work for you. So AI has removed friction and essentially removed thinking. So obviously, and everyone is saying this, and we all know this, friction is a positive thing. I mean, coming up against, you can't figure something out. So you sit and you think and you mull it over. This book on that I'm looking at on the left here is coming out of corporate business background. And I haven't read the book. I've just skimmed reviews of it, and it's really interesting. They make a distinction between kind of bad friction and good friction. Okay, so I think when it comes to us in online teaching, obviously bad friction are things like, confusing instructions, you're setting up obstacles, maybe creating too many clicks in an LMS to get to needed information. Maybe some arbitrary things that we work with people like Aileen and instructional designers to not have that quote unquote bad friction. But obviously good friction, this kind of structured effort that reveals cognition. So this article came back, this out in the summer, Catherine Savini, and she posits, right, she's arguing that in the AI era, friction should not be thought of as a barrier, I guess good friction. It's a scaffold, right, that channels students back towards real learning. So I'm just using the word friction, but we could use this idea, to relate to the idea of cognitive offloading and how we engage in deeper thought. It is filled with this kind of back and forth and puzzling over things, and it takes a while to do. So in her article, CVD gives some examples of creating pedagogical friction. And probably all of us have been thinking about this. Those of us in composition, I have to kind of chuckle a little bit over this because those of us who have been teaching writing in the field of composition and rhetoric, hey, we've been doing this for 30, 40 years. This has been us in the classroom breaking writing into stages, telling students, no, 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 I'm not accepting I'm not accepting a final copy of an essay on the last day of class. I don't assign it that way, right? So if you've been in the field of Red and Comp, we've always scaffolded assignments. Also, I think Red and Comp has been doing this as well, understanding the rhetorical situation and creating assignments that are, we talk about being project-based, real world audiences, trying to come up with ways to structure assignments. It's not just an academic essay. It becomes something that's meaningful and requires various pieces. Oral, a lot has been written now about people going back to oral presentations and oral exams, and that's been definitely and then this is what I'm going to just talk about today, not the discussion part of it, but I'm going to talk about screen sharing, having students share their screen as they narrate and as they explain something to me. So that's what I'm going to focus on. And are there any questions so far?
There doesn't look to be any questions, but there's some good conversation in the chat.
Oh, okay, so um, and let me just, I'll go. So what is it not? So this is in my humble, I began thinking about, so what is friction not really? It should not be busy work. Okay, students pick up on busy work. If you're going to give them something, yeah, it should be meaningful. It should not be a trap to catch AI cheaters. I did this, I confess the other day, I can't believe I did it. And I do have a little, if you read Inside Higher Ed, I have a little, this our opinion piece coming out where I describe what I did. Because I was so, Comet took over my my quiz. I tested it out and Comet just took my quiz and got a 90. And I was so enraged that I went back in and did some of this and I'm not going to do it anymore. So friction is not like trying to trap students. It should not be just unmoored from your SLOs, right? It should be something meaningful. So I'm saying that friction is not a punishment. It should just be a part of really superior course design and assignment design. And I just want to know what my students are really thinking and what maybe they've learned from an assignment. That's really all I want to do is how do we surface that? How do we make it visible? Okay. So this assignment, and this was before AI, the annotated bib. And I think the annotated bib is a great assignment to start with in terms of how can we fix this up and reimagine it. It certainly is one of those assignments that's very kind of boilerplate. I think all of us, if you've ever assigned one of these, even back in the day before AI, students have just copied and pasted an abstract and then uses the source to change a few words and boom, there's the summary to the scholarly journal article. So annotated bibs, though, can be really important because I've always been interested in trying to ascertain what my first year students, how they even identify a source. They cannot tell the difference often between a scholarly source. I mean, oftentimes they will recognize that, but then they just have a hard time because of the way everything is not in print anymore to understand that, oh, this is a newspaper article versus a periodical article or a trade journal article. So in that case, I really wanted to see how they were thinking. So the first approach that I took was to use, we have a contract with Panopto, so that's our screen capture software, that's our video software. So what I have them do is to share their screen as they talk about the sources that they found. So as you can see from my directions here, share the article through screen capture, identify in 30 seconds to 60 seconds, identify the title of the article, the author, all of those pieces. When was the article published? And you would think, oh, that's just simple, but students don't always get that. So I really, especially first semester students, and we're using the databases, I want to make sure they've pinned that down. Then I tell them they need to summarize in no more than 1 minute, okay, what the article says. Now, they have to do this as the article is being shown on the screen, and this is all being recorded. This is not live. They're showing me, they can move their cursor around and show me, oh, here's the title, go down the screen, and they continue. Now, this is the interesting section here, the personal reflection and the unique detail. Because I tell them, you can't just stay on the first page of your scholarly journal article. You've got to scroll through and identify things that you think are interesting, okay? And reflect on, how might you use this in your paper? Was there anything unique or really cool that stood out to you? So it approximates, a real-time discussion I might have with the student about a source if I were sitting next to them, in a lab, for example, in a situation where we're both looking at a online article. So this is the first approach that I take, is to do this. And then I also have them upload the works cited page, and that's the written part. So I do listen to these. I have them closed caption because now that is becoming the federal law. They have to close caption as well, but Panopta will do that. And actually, it's pretty great to go through these. And I'll get back to that in a minute. Like, how do I assess this? Approach two, okay. Oh, and this is me modeling it. So I always model everything I do. So here's like my sample one, and I'm showing them. Now I have a little fancier, I mean, I've got the full Camtasia suite, so I could do like cool stuff. But they see what it's like to talk while you're going through an article. The other thing that I've been doing, and this is more with my Ing 160 students that are maybe a little intimidated about using screen capture software. I use Satori. I have to pay for it, but it's like, I think it's about $100 a year, and I get pretty much unlimited student use. It's a time maker, timeline maker. It was conceived as a timeline maker, multimedia, and it's used in the K through 6 space. So I tell my students, if a second or third grader is using this software, you guys can't. That always makes them laugh. So I translate it this way. They have a oral component. They have to link me to the source in our library databases. They do a little bit of writing here, but they have an oral identification. Satori makes it simple to do a quick recording. So this is a very low entry point in terms of technology. Again, it's used in the K through 6 space. Kids use it all the time. So this is another way to do this without worrying about filming, but it's still multimedia. To kind of wrap things up, I went a little longer than I meant to because I wanted to leave more time for discussion. But so what are the positives that have been coming out of this? I find fewer problems with just out and out plagiarism, right? That idea that you just take the abstract and so forth. I also see usually I can get a good sense of how well they've understood the source by listening to what they're saying, their oral component. And in general, I think I'm getting more of an authentic reflection. And when students stumble over something and they'll say, oh, yeah, and it just seems so much, it does appear to be real and more authentic. They'll say, I really don't get this section of the essay, but it's really interesting. I think I'll use it in my research project. And they'll be, can seem to be more honest. Okay. So what about the negative? So there's some cautions here. Some friction actually becomes too much friction. And this is with students that really struggle with technology. And there are even those students who sign up for, an asynchronous online course. Some of them really maybe didn't want to. They don't want to be in a course using this technology. So I think, there have been occasions where I've agreed to meet with students and we'll work it out. And because I don't want to create this huge problem for them. But I would say the vast majority are fine with the technology. Of course, with any tool that you use, I had to run Satori through my OIT people checking for accessibility. Of course, if you bring in a third-party tool like this, I mean, the college is not paying for it. I pay for it. But I really enjoy it. But you need to keep all of this in mind, I think, as federal guidelines are changing, you know. And finally, it does not eliminate academic misconduct. Of course, a student, of course, could just have ChatGPT summarize the article, put it all into their phone and like hold it over here. But it does create, the student still has to engage with what's on the screen and has to engage with some cognition that I think it's superior than just having ChatGPT spit out an annotated bibliography. You see what I mean? So I would say in general, this has been a good approach so far. And as I said, I've been doing this for years before, free AI came on the scene. In fact, I would say the AI companies are creating a truly frictionless for our students by making all of these tools, really, they're all free this year. Everything is free to the students. So there's not even a barrier of cost for students. So, and that's it.
Thank you, Rachel. We do have some conversation in the chat. I'm just gonna kind of go backwards. There was a question, I think it was in regards to your uh, approach number one with the reflection, which I think you also just kind of addressed right now. But the question was, couldn't they do this with AI and just read what AI generated? And AI can now reflect on its decisions in writing. Although they add that you have a well-developed lesson that's valuable, and that they later agree that it is a superior assignment to a general annotated bibliography. Um, just keep going. There was also another question about Satori and wondering if it provided captions. And Aaron added that you can perhaps upload a captioning file, but not sure if it has native captioning. Do you know anything more about its functionality?
It passed review by my campus, and I'm not sure how it passed. So it must have passed. That's a really, really good question. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm coming back to the idea that anything that adds some type of authenticity, of course we're going to get to the point where we could just have an avatar, I assume, that would just do this whole thing. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I'm still thinking about all of this and what just makes it seem more authentic, of course, as they say. I mean, I've got my notes here. This could have all been generated by ChatGPT. Um, yeah, no, I agree.
And there are some additional comments. Tonka adds, having your face on the screen also gives more opportunities for guilt if you're using unapproved means. I'm thinking students are less likely to blatantly cheat if their face is on the screen. Tonka also asks, if your campus has Panopto, why did you decide against it? Panopto has native automatic speech recognition.
Oh no, they use Panopto, the students do. I just use the full Camtasia suite because I'm doing all this fancy stuff. Um, but our campus has the captioning is not automatic. You have to go in and you have to request the captioning. So I usually have to remind students, oh, it's not captioned, it's not captioned. But I do require that they caption.
Great. Um, and like Erin mentions, if anybody would like to come off mute to have more direct conversation, we certainly welcome it. Or if there are any other questions, feel free to add them in the chat.
Rachel, I'm curious if you have had some, if you can talk more about some student feedback, like their reflection on this experience. What has been their
Yeah,
perception?
I've tried to go back through my SEIs and look at them. Some students, and I tell the students they actually don't have to record their faces. They really don't because some people don't, and there's a way to X out the camera. So that's fine. And I'm just trying to think of any negative feedback. It's usually just the first time using screen capture. If they haven't used a tool like that, that can be problematic. But you see, we communicate in my async classes. I record videos. They get video feedback with screen capture from me when I go over their essays. So they really appreciate that. I get a lot of feedback about that. And I started doing that now in my seated classes. I record video feedback with the screen capture, commenting on essays, and this is how we communicate. Um, and that has been, I think it's been mostly positive, except for the few people, and there always are going to be students for technology is a big hurdle. So,
Yeah, there's a comment in the chat just echoing, loving the video feedback practice. Certainly creates a more personal connection, adds more tone, kind
yeah,
of
I told
helps.
them it's my proof of life.
Yeah.
And
Are
I,
there,
I love that you do that for your seated classes too. I think that's really valuable.
Because they can play
Yeah.
it back and they love it. But it is,
Yeah.
I think it just goes back to authenticity. I this is really hitting the online space very hard. AI truly is hitting us, especially async classes, I think. It's very challenging.
are there other thoughts or comments or any similar practices that others might be doing or
Yeah, I
considering?
would love to know, is anyone doing stuff like this where you're doing these multimodal?
There's another comment. It makes reading assignments boring. Everything is so similar now. Georgina, did you wanna, yeah, add anything more specific or just sort of kind of the landscape that we find ourselves in?
I'd be
Yeah.
curious if anyone has created an assignment to try to kind of get at this same thing, right? That Rachel is talking about, whether multimodal or not. Um, it's always awesome to share what we're doing. And so if you have a particular assignment, feel free to share that in the chat too.
I mean, started using, I did away with discussion board along again before AI, and I just now use social media. I mean, social media, social annotation tools. We use hypothesis, but there's perusal. Um, yeah, I'm just wondering about our LMS structure. I don't know. Um, it's kind of like you have to bring in third-party tools, unfortunately, to do some of the stuff that I find really interesting.
We certainly have our own barriers to navigate. Is there anything on the horizon that you are looking forward to? The sort of revising, anything that you have that you think would be better, or new tools that you hope exist, or anything that you kind of see that you hope to incorporate for future or new assignments?
Probably. I mean, I'm really interested. I spend all my free time reading about AI in the higher education space. So I'm actually very interested. Allow my students to use AI for particular assignments. So it's really, I think it's actually a lot of fun. There's a lot of interesting, innovative stuff going on. So yeah.
There's also another question. Are you finding more engagement with I almost did it, social annotation tools?
Yeah, but you can use AI for that as well, right? So I do see more engagement now. I've gotten really good feedback for social and my tool that we subscribe. We have a hypothesis. In fact, there's a case study they use. A couple of my classes, hypothesis used, I guess, as a marketing thing, but. It is true. There's a much higher level of engagement. Students like it better than discussion board. I don't know. I can't think of it. I mean, I do use discussion board for peer critiques, like as a holding spot for an essay that someone's going to read. But I would never ever go back to a discussion board situation of a text. Um, yeah, no. I mean, having those comments anchored right on to a text is superior. But of course, I still see, obviously things that have been generated that seem suspiciously generated by AI.
Yeah. Just another opportunity if there are any questions or anything anyone else would like to share. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you to all of our attendees for your participation in today's webinar. We do have one final webinar coming up today at 11 a.m. In this same Zoom room on strategies to design for engagement and belonging in online courses.
Excellent.
Recordings for this week's National Distance Learning Week sessions will also be posted on our website, and Erin has put those in the chat. National Distance Learning Week is sponsored by USDLA, who also hosts additional events this week. You can check them out on their website. Please provide your feedback on your experience with our sessions this week by completing the brief survey. And thank you once again.
Goodbye. Thank you. See you at 11.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks, everyone. For the attendees in the room, I'm gonna close the room and then we'll reopen it so I can get the recording. Thank you, Aline.
Thank you. Take care.